No, the music that is out is dangerous, but it's dangerous to the right people. So if I say nigga, 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 kill, nigga, shoot, nigga, 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 fuck niggas, kill niggas, niggas ain't shit, that's just mainstream music. There's nothing wrong with that. I could diss Malcolm X, as happened recently. I could have a song called Looking Ass Nigga and put Malcolm X's image, a hero to black people across the world, on the cover and disrespect him. Do you think black artists can disrespect anyone that's important to Jewish people? Or that's that important to white people in the music industry? Or any other culture furthermore, right? I don't think so. And get support, unconditional support. But you want to diss Emmett Till, you want to diss Malcolm X, go right ahead, we'll give you a platform to do it. You prefer to make films about butlers than about Toussaint Louverture or Nanny of the Maroons or Kwame Nkrumah or any of the other infinitely more significant black figures that, you know, could have films made about them that even beyond just black people, the whole human population would want, with sense anyway, would want to see. It's not going to get done. So your music can be dangerous to certain people. Look at Ice-T. You know, when Ice-T got dropped for Cop Killer, I've touched on some of this stuff before. He made a record called Cop Killer, he got dropped from his label. How many rappers have rapped about murdering black people? They're not going to get dropped anytime soon. So you can promote violence towards some people and be seen as an acceptable mainstream figure, or just promote misogyny and materialism. But the moment you counter that, you're considered too political. And one of the things I've really tried to do with this album is return to just remind people, at no point have I said, or has anyone with sense said, that reading a couple of books makes you a dickhead and that you won't defend yourself if you have to. I've never said, be a mug, let people slap you in your face and don't do nothing about it. Not in one of my records have I made that statement. Being a more open and more loving towards yourself and towards people from a similar background to you has no correlation with your ability to defend yourself. And so I think some of the aggression in this album that sits alongside songs like Time to Relax and stuff is about reminding people of that, just bringing back that Dead Prez, Wu-Tang, road energy. Like, we can have sense, but if you want to take it another way, listen, I ain't running nowhere. I'm not saying I'm no bad man neither. I'm just saying I'm from that energy. It can go either way. It is what it is. We'll all defend ourselves. We're grown men out here. It's not a big deal. But I'd rather use that aggression and that violence that exists within me and channel it into something positive and into promoting something that I believe in than into foolishness. I'm a grown man. What kind of fool would I look like getting into, where you from, cuz? What are you looking at? I was on the train the other day, some little youth was screwing his face up at me. He must have thought I was young, yeah? And I couldn't even help it, bro. He must have thought I was mad young anyway. I am young, but you know what I mean. Right. Bro, I just started bursting out with laughter in his face, bro. And I know he just felt like an idiot, because he must have clocked. He must have been 18. And he must have clocked, right, this is a grown man, you know what I mean? But he's got on the train or something like this, you know what I mean? Or maybe sometimes, because obviously I get on the train, but I don't get on the train that often. I've started to more recently. Maybe sometimes I can't tell whether someone's looking at me like trying to figure out, right, is that my man? Because people seem surprised that I would use public transport. Sometimes it's easier, like I can't be bothered to drive everywhere. But also, sometimes you can't figure out whether someone's staring at you to say hello, or because they want a picture or whatever else. But this youth was definitely bending up his face. But I just laughed. There was a time when that might have become something, where I'd have been intimidating or scared too, and maybe responded. Now, bro, I literally found it hilarious. I was like, you're a you. And so I feel like as you grow up, it kind of makes you a hypocrite, but not really. It's a process of evolution. And if at 30 years old, you're still rapping about the same stuff you was rapping about when you're 18, if you're still in it, cool. I can't knock you. If you're still on the block, then rap about the block. But what would I look like? Having been to 50-something countries, still rapping exactly the same as I was when I was 19.
That segues to My Mind's Changed.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
There you go.
You know, I was saying it's like the type of music that someone makes when they are developed and they've grown and they understand. Give us your take on My Mind's Changed.
Yeah, My Mind's Changed is about everything we were just talking about. In a sense, it looks at a similar scenario to that. Like, I think about some of the conflicts I got in when I was younger, and some of the situations myself and my friends and people I grew up around were in over foolishness. When I really look at it, some of it was serious. You know, there's some man, they're organised crime. Cool, I get that. Organised crime, there's a certain amount of violence that comes with it. But if we look at the majority of conflict that happens among the man them growing up, and it's continuing to happen among young, it's not over organised crime. Most of these youths are broke. They haven't got no money. And I don't mean that as a diss. I just mean it like, men are killing each other over ends, over foolishness, over this, over screwface, over a party and you trod on my shoe and all this kind of foolishness. That really, when you think about it, murdering someone only makes sense if you're in organised crime. In that world, it's over this territory, over that, or over he took my man's food, or blah, blah, blah. I get that. That comes with, that is what it is. And I think part of it is actually we lost. If I look at my dad's generation, them men all used to fight. And I'm not romanticising their generation. I know people got stabbed back then too. But most of the men I know of that generation, 45 plus, all of them are trained in some kind of fighting art, martial arts, boxing. Part of that was because of Teddy Boys and NF would have bust your head. So you, as a young black male in this country, you had to train to fight. But part of it was let's have a straightness, isn't it? We've had and I'm kind of trying to bring that back with this album as well, like the vibe of, as slightly olders, imagine our younger brothers and cousins and people like that, we were like, nah, just fight, innit? Like, you and my man don't get on, cool. Just have a little dust up. You might get a broken nose, but you'll go home. And when you're older, now your pride's hurt. When you're a little bit older, you look back and you be like, I got a broken nose, so what? But I'm alive and my mum's not going to no funeral over no foolishness. Because I'm not really a serious criminal. Well, the song begins with sort of looking at that that scenario and those conflicts now from the perspective of someone who, when people screw their face up at me, I just find it comical. Whereas at 20, when you feel a bit more threatened, you can't laugh it off. You're not secure enough in yourself to laugh it off. You do feel threatened, and so you react. And so my mind's changed is really saying the same energy and the same vibe, and I'm the same person, but naturally going to South Africa, as I have done, and to the slums out there, going to Brazil, spending significant time in Brazil, even going back to Jamaica regularly, going to places in the world where life is infinitely harder than anything I've experienced, reading the things that I've read, having the relationships that I've had, both personal and business, just having a life experience will naturally change who you are. When I was growing up, we really didn't have any money. Like, and I don't say it to be romantic. So there's a tradition that middle class people often like to romanticize poverty and dress down and all this kind of stuff. When you actually have, I just mean British relative poverty that I experienced, it's not fun, bruv. Going to school without breakfast is not fun. Being the kid in school with holy shoes, it's not fun. Like, those are not nice experiences. Knocking on your neighbour's house to borrow sugar or toilet paper, those things are not fun when you don't live in a close-knit community. It's different. If you live in a close-knit community where people love one another, that's not a big thing. But I didn't live in that. And so, for me, even that, having relative economic privilege, I'm far from a rich guy, but compared to most of the planet, actually, I am rich. I might not be rich compared to rich people in this country, but like I said, I've been to 50-something countries and been paid to go to most of them. I do what I love for a living. That makes me one of the most privileged people on the planet. And so being aware of that, my mind has changed, and my view of myself and of life and of conflict and of death, all of those things have evolved, hopefully, over the last 11 years since I started making music. Or making music as a career.
When you talk about that portion of life where it's not a close-knit community, you have to now ask for the bare necessities. As a young child, how impressionable was that for you, and what was the scenario like?
You know, I think I didn't live on an estate, I lived in a council house. And I mention that because it makes a difference, right? See, when you live on an estate, from all of my brethren and my cousins and time that I've spent on their blocks, for all the madness, people live so close together that a certain community can form, particularly when you live like in a more segregated Afro-Caribbean community, like my cousins that live in Harlesden or Brixton or Tottenham or somewhere like that. If you live on Church Road, or if you live on Summer Leighton or Angeltown, for all the badness that goes down, your grandmother and my man's grandmother came over from the Caribbean at the same time, you know, and your dads know each other. So even if you might not really get along, knocking on Auntie's house down the road for a little rice and peas ain't no big thing. Everyone goes to her yard on Sunday to eat anyway, kind of thing. Do you see what I mean? Like my grandmother, even though my grandmother doesn't live on one of those kind of estates, right? Still, on a Sunday, I know I can go to my grand's house and there's food cooking, right? So when you actually live in the hood, directly in it, there's a certain sense of community. Whereas I lived 2 streets down from the estate, and I didn't live in an area where none of my family lived. So it's like my next door neighbour, we didn't really know each other. I still don't know half the people on the street that I grew up in. There's like 3 or 4 families on the street that I knew. So it was kind of like how London moves. Even though it was council house, it was very, everyone kept themselves to themselves. So what did that mean? That meant in times of struggle, in times of hardship, unless I was going to get on a bus all the way to my grand's house, which was 20 minutes away, which I did actually every Sunday. I ate at my nan's house every Sunday for my whole life growing up. And she used to give me a little £5 out of her pension and whatever else. And there's only now I look back as a big man, I think, rah, like, at the time, your grand's giving you £5, you assume all the adults have money, innit? But I only look back now on my grand as a pension, I think, rah, to give me a £5 every Sunday and my sister a £5 every Sunday, out of your pension, that's a big deal, you know? Like, when you really think about it, and that's quite a sacrifice. And so seeing all of that, I don't know. I just think that that shapes you, and that pride. Like still now, I don't like to ask people for stuff, and even when I need their help, I'm very prideful like that. There's a small circle of people. If I ask for a favor from you, that means I like you and I respect you. If I don't like you and respect you, I will never. I'm very stubborn. Like I'll cut my nose off to spite my face, and people get annoyed with me. Like people in the team will be like, "Yeah, but you know, my man, just ask for." And it's not even a big thing, you know. But I just have so much pride on it. No, I'm not asking. I don't care. I don't know that person well enough to ask for their help. And I think that can be a detriment sometimes, to be honest with you. And it's kind of egotistical. But I think it was also partly shaped by, actually, now that you ask it, by those experiences of maybe asking for things that, in this society, in a society governed by private property, it's considered embarrassing to have to borrow sugar from your neighbours. Why is that embarrassing? It's no big thing. It's a bag of sugar. Or a little piece of toilet paper to wipe your body. If you ain't got none right now and you ain't got no money to buy no new toilet paper, borrow some toilet paper. But in a society like this, where poor people are looked down upon so much, those are, at the time, felt like shameful events when really they were character building events.